Good morning, lovely friends of Earth. I hope that you're having an amazing day. Today, I would like to talk about my experience with Kundalini raising and intense emotion. Like I say in every single one of my videos, as a disclaimer, this is my experience only. I'm not telling you how to live. I'm not giving you any shoulds, shouldn'ts. I'm not giving any medical advice, nothing like that. This is just my experience with this journey of intentionally raising my Kundalini energy. And here's what I have to say about intense emotions. So, I've always been an emotional person, and I kind of live through my emotions, or I always have anyway. It's like I've tended to ignore the logical and the reasonable and what am I feeling. I would talk from feeling. I feel this way instead of saying I think, like very in my emotions. And my emotions were intense, unbearably intense. So much so that I talk about this in other videos, but I went to see a therapist because I didn't really know how to deal with this. It's something, that should really just be not a big deal and make me maybe a little peeved, would make me so irritable and get under my skin. Something that might make me a little sad, might make someone who's healthier or more balanced just a little bit sad, would like bring me down for days, and I'd cry and I'd think about it nonstop. It was just so intense and difficult to deal with. So I went to a therapist for it, and I'm still seeing a therapist for it just because I believe in the importance of follow through. So I'm going to see my therapist until my insurance won't pay for it anymore, basically. So anyway, I have in the past not allowed myself to feel and express the emotion of anger. That felt bad to me. It felt like it was not okay, not spiritual, not being a good girl to feel anger. So I would just kind of stuff it down and beat it into the ground, into myself. So I'd get angry. Okay, I'm going to be really, really open and honest with you right now. And I can't even believe I'm telling anybody this, especially not in an open forum like this. But I would turn my anger toward myself. So I'd feel angry, but good girls aren't allowed to feel angry. Spiritual people are not allowed to feel angry. They're not especially allowed to let other people know that they're angry. You can feel angry, but you need to squish it. You need to find a way to get rid of it as quickly as possible. So I would turn my anger to myself. And I have a history of self-abusive behaviors. Cutting myself. I, on a few occasions, actually punched myself in the face and left bruises and swelled up and everything. I still can't even believe that I did that, but I did. And little ways that I would hurt myself, like I'm very aware of foods, very, very, very sensitive to foods. And I know what foods work well with my body. So when I was feeling angry, I'd eat something that I would know would give me a bad reaction. How crazy is that? So like sugar and flour and cheese and stuff I don't respond well. So I avoid it most of the time when I'm healthy. But when I used to get angry at myself, I'd eat it on purpose to hurt myself. So all of my anger was turned inside, and because I'd have these intense emotions, I'd have explosive anger that would try and be processed through me. That's what anger wants. It just wants to be paid attention to. In my opinion, that's what it wanted from me. But instead of paying attention to it, I'd try to get rid of it as soon as I could. And it felt like it had to come out. So I'd scratch myself, or I'd cut myself, or I'd punch myself in the face, or I would just eat something that I know would bother my stomach for hours. Like I just was really self-abusive. And that was intense. So interestingly enough, this Kundalini energy, I talk about it in every video, is feeling like a seesaw of extremes. So one day I'd feel really blissful and wonderful, and then the next day something would come up and I'd feel really angry and unjustifiably so. Like, really small thing would come up and I'd feel this rage. The difference between the rage that I used to feel and the rage that I feel now is not the feeling. It's, first of all, it's the magnitude of the event that causes it. It used to take like a lot to make me feel angry. Now, interestingly enough, it only takes a little bit of something, or not, I shouldn't say now, I should say there have been some events in the past since this energy has been working its way up my spine, or whatever you want to say, however you want to word that. There have been a few instances where something very small will happen. My fiance and I were sleeping, and he put his knee on my back just to be closer to me, and I got so angry, felt like a fire in me, and I had to leave the room. There was no reason for that whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it was a sign of affection. He was trying to be affectionate toward me, and I just got pissed, and I had to leave. The interesting difference, though, is it went from being completely self-directed anger to being outwardly directed, where I wanted to rip him to pieces. I was so enraged, and all I could think about is yelling and screaming at him, which is why I left the room, because I wasn't going to respond like that, because it's not okay to hurt anybody, myself or anyone else. But it's interesting that the Kundalini energy, in an effort, I believe, to balance itself, to balance me, made these attempts at expressing anger outward, made me feel like that's what I wanted to do. That was the impulse. And like all of the other things that I've noticed with Kundalini, the seesaw, the balancing, this kind of striving for perfection. Now, what happens when I experience these intense emotions of anger or whatever, sadness doesn't come up, because I believe that the reason was sadness was my default that I would go to before. I had a history of depression, or have a history of depression, so sadness was something that I allowed myself to express. It was okay. So it did have a way of processing itself. Anger is what comes up for me right now, or not at this very moment, but it has been recently coming up a lot. But the way I respond is quite different. So, just as an example, the night that my fiance touched his knee to my back, God forbid, I went downstairs and I was like, okay, I don't know what this is about. I don't know why I want to rip something to pieces right now. There's a fire in me, and I can't squish it, because all that will do is create tension and blocks in my body, in my energy body, and in my physical body, and it'll make me sick. And I knew it. I could feel it. I could actually feel the anger as a physical thing, like a ball. I could actually feel it in my body, and kind of almost visualize it and see it in my energy body, and feel where it was in my energy body and in my body, which was very interesting and very different. I've never been able to recognize anything like that. So I was like, okay, I want to process this. I want to give this all the time it needs. I'm going to embrace it. Hello, anger. I'm happy that you're here. Let's work through this. And I said the words because I knew it was like the right thing to say. I could feel it. I didn't necessarily mean it, because it was uncomfortable, and I did just kind of want to get rid of it. But I knew it was the right thing to do, to process it. So I let it be there. And I just felt angry. I let myself feel angry. And whenever it would start to go away, I would bring it back up. because I could feel that it wasn't, that it still had some hooks in me and it was still like a little ball. I could still feel like it was getting smaller and kind of loosening up, but I'd be like, no, it's not done yet. I'm not done. So I'd like let myself feel this anger, and it dissipated. I didn't need to know why. I didn't need to figure out the root cause. I didn't need to repress or express. I needed to process. And once the processing was done, I wasn't angry anymore. I came up and laid with my fiance and I held him. And it was fine. Totally fine. I just needed, I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 minutes to process that. That was it. So I think that the recognition of the intense emotion is important. Recognizing, acknowledging it, and being okay with it, almost embracing it. It's there and it wants to be worked with. That felt really important to me. And still, when anger comes up, I'm like, okay, I need to embrace this and I need to look at it, acknowledge that it's here, and feel it. I need to, from what I have recognized as the right thing to do, what feels right, is to notice the feeling and feel it until it doesn't need to be felt anymore. And that's it. I don't need to take any action. I don't need to tell anybody what I'm feeling, although that helps too, to be able to honestly say, I'm angry right now and I don't know why, or I'm angry because this thing happened. To say it is helpful sometimes, but it's not necessary. So dealing with the intense emotions has been easier than it was before. But the emotions that I feel are more intense and they come up easier. And I think that's because I'm much more sensitive. So now, like, things that might make me angry for a flash, things that may have in the past before this energy started raising, things that might have made me feel a little irritated for a second, and then I would have squished it, now bring up a very intense feeling of anger that instead of trying to push it away immediately, I've recognized the importance of allowing it to process. And I really just feel like it's been buried for so long that now the anger is coming up through these levels of my being. And it just needs to come out. And I know that. I can feel it. And that's the difference. I've always had intense emotions, but now I know how to work with them. And they are more intense. And some of them don't make any sense. They just don't fit in with the situation. I'm like, why am I feeling so sad right now? There's nothing going on. And I'm like, I don't know. And I don't really need to know. I just need to let this feeling work its way through me. And the only way to work its way through me is to be with it and to feel it fully. And I'll even say to myself, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna feel sad. And I might even put on a sad song and let myself cry. And if it feels like something that is affecting other people, I might say, okay, it's 9:55 a.m. I'm going to give myself until 9:57 to fully feel this. But at 9:57 a.m., I got to deal with some shit. So I've got to be there for my kids or whatever. I've got to be there with my fiance, and I want to be in a good mood. So at 9:57, this is not allowed to be here anymore. And just saying that, it's incredible, because at 9:57, I will suddenly just feel free of it. And maybe it needs to process further later on. It can come up then. I feel much more in control of my emotions. Control is the wrong word. I feel much more able to harmoniously work with whatever emotions come up than I ever have in my entire life. So it makes me feel very stable, very, very well, meaning like healthy. I feel like things are good emotionally, and I'm in therapy for the first time in my life, really. And the most interesting and ironic thing is, this is the time when I've needed it the least in all of my life. but because I am determined to properly work with what comes up, I believe that having an extra support there in the form of someone who's an objective professional is like the right thing to do. So that's my experience with intense emotions. I think that the Kundalini process is a detoxifying and purifying process that will bring up, at least for me, it will bring up intense emotions, both negative and positive, to be processed, to be worked through, to be detoxed, to detox me. So it's a positive sign when these intense emotions come up, that they're being expelled, and that it's one layer of this negative emotion, this bad feeling. I won't call it negative because it's not. It's just an emotion. It's just a thing. It really is not negative or positive. It's just that the negative emotions create negative effects in our body and in our lives. They cause sickness, disease in the body and in life in general. So they're unwanted, they're undesirable. And when they come out, the body and the soul and the energy field and the emotions are all being purified so that you can be more authentic, be more pure. That's my feeling. I'd love to know what your feeling is. I'd love to hear from you. Please email me or leave a comment below, and I will see you tomorrow.